Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the After Hours Film Society podcast. I am Amin.
And I'm Sean.
And today we are going to be giving our reviews on Casino, 1995, directed by Martin Scorsese. This is a movie starring Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci about the mob takeover of Las Vegas and the rise and fall of the mobsters therein and how they managed to turn Vegas into something that was very profitable for both the people and for the mafia as well.
Yeah, well, it's a movie compared a lot to Goodfellas. It only came out 5 years after Goodfellas, and it's another Scorsese movie written by him and Nicholas Pileggi and starring De Niro and Pesci. And personally, I'll just say right off the bat, I think I like Casino more. Like, I really do enjoy the characters. I think it's more of a fascinating story, and I do like the cast more than Goodfellas.
I'd have to agree with you there, Sean. I actually always liked Casino more than Goodfellas. I think whether or not it's a better movie, that's debatable, but I always enjoyed watching it more. I think that it's a lot more spectacle. The colors really pop, and that was always my favorite part of the movie, the costumes and colors. It's a very bright movie. It's a very loud movie. The music and action never really stops, and it's just a spectacle from start to finish. And so while I do think there's a lot of similarities to Goodfellas, I do think they're very different movies for sure. Obviously, they're both the rise and fall gangster genre type of movie, but because the way Casino portrays that rise and fall is very different, particularly in how it's sort of showing the fall of an entire crew of people rather than the rise and fall of one character and all the characters in relation to him. It's more or less the entire crew. And I think that Joe Pesci's character Nicky Santoro is actually more or less of a deuteragonist in this movie. I think that while Robert De Niro obviously has the most screen time and the most narration, Joe Pesci sort of serves as like the other side of the mob story, whereas De Niro is sort of the guy at the head. Pesci is the guy who's fighting for the head.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I agree with you. You said earlier when we were watching this, you've seen it several times, and when I watched it with you the other week, it was my first time. And yeah, I mean, Joe Pesci probably gave his best performance of his career here. And I liked how his accent was more unusual than how it usually is, because most of his characters have the same voice, like Tommy DeVito, Vinnie Gambini, Harry Lime from Home Alone. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that made his rant at the desert funnier. The first time I saw that desert scene, I was just dying laughing.
Yeah. That definite highlight of the movie. I will 100% agree. This is definitely Joe Pesci's best performance of his entire career. Most memorable for sure. I think the only one that sticks out to me as like a contender would be Raging Bull. But even then, like in that movie, he's very reserved. This is him firing on all cylinders, right? Showing the Scorsese chronology of collaborations between him and Pesci. Raging Bull was the one where he was the reasoned calm brother, and De Niro was the total nut job. Goodfellas was the one where he was a nut job, but he was a side character. He was a supporting character. This one, Nicky is more or less essentially sharing the movie with Rothstein's character, of Robert De Niro's character, and in this movie, you really see him just being able to go all out with his mobster persona, which he has perfected so well to a T.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And Sharon Stone got an Oscar nomination for playing Ginger. I can see why. I loved her in Total Recall. Great movie. Paul Verhoeven's criminally underrated. She had a similar relationship with Schwarzenegger in that. Like, at first she comes off as like the girl next door, but that image deteriorates and she becomes so chaotic.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that you can tell what stage of the movie you're in based on the state that Sharon Stone's character is in, based on the state of Ginger. You can take a frame of her from any point of the movie and determine exactly what stage of the movie you're in. She sort of is a reflection of De Niro's of Rothstein's deteriorating life, and as the movie progresses and things start falling around him, Ginger, who was supposed to be the light of his life, begins to become the biggest problem in his life. And I think Sharon Stone was really able to convey that very well and very dramatically.
Like Sam and Ginger, I think became my favorite married couple relationship in a Scorsese movie. I think it's better than like with Henry with Karen and Jordan with Naomi.
Mm-hmm. Unrelated, but I do kind of find it funny how Henry and Karen stayed together through all of that, and it was after he went into witness protection that she divorced him. They finally got the divorce after it was all over.
Yeah,
you know.
Totally. Oh
yeah.
man.
Well, yeah, best couple. Yeah, okay, I can see that. So what in particular stood out to you about the movie that you liked so much?
Well, I think compared to some other movies of his, I just really liked the scope of everything. I loved like the production design is fantastic,
right?
And like the way the cinematography shows that is so great. As you mentioned, it's very colorful, mm-hmm. and you know the fast paced nature of things just makes the experience even more fun to watch. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. A highlight I wanted to point out was the opening credit scene, which goes so hard. Yeah. Do you know the name of the song at the beginning? So
I don't know.
A choir. Well, I'm not sure either, but all I know is that that orchestral choir intercut with the lights of Las Vegas and the opening credits and the opening credits and names of the producers, like that went so hard. I love that, you know, and especially with De Niro's opening monologue about how like when you love someone you have to trust them completely. That sets up the whole movie. Like that shows you exactly what you're about to see. It's a story of love, of loss, and of Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
It's very effective. You know.
So, where do you think this performance of De Niro ranks upon his other roles in Scorsese movies?
Well, De Niro had such a prolific career, so to hone in on Scorsese movies specifically, I would say it's definitely up there. This is the one where I still think nothing beats Raging Bull. I think that's like nothing really beats Raging Bull, I don't think. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a fair take, is probably the best, that's definitely the best in terms of Scorsese movies, and one of, if not the best performance of his entire career. So for Casino, I'd say the thing about Casino is Ace Rothstein is very much up his alleyway. Like that's it is a very common archetype for him to play mob boss. Like no one plays the mob boss more prolifically and like better than De Niro does. He's very good at that. So I do feel like this was just sort of him slipping into a role he was very familiar with. Whereas Raging Bull was one where he definitely had to exit out of what he knew and understood. You know, I mean, he's always shined. I think the only character archetype he plays better than the tough guy, better than the boss, is emotionally troubled men. He's very good at that. If you've seen The King of Comedy mm-hmm. and Taxi Driver mm-hmm. and all these other ones, like he's very good at playing emotionally disturbed men. And so I would personally still put Raging Bull as like his best in terms of that archetype and in terms of his collaborations with Scorsese. Nonetheless, this one in Casino was obviously still very good.
Leonardo DiCaprio might also mm-hmm. have this quality, but I think De Niro has this natural likability about him. Mm-hmm. He seems like a nice man in real life. He plays a lot of very troubled characters, mm-hmm. and he humanizes them. Characters at least villain-esque. And you saw that here with Ace, but you also saw that in Jake LaMotta, mm-hmm. Johnny Boy, and one of the most iconic villains in cinema, Travis Bickle.
Right.
And he makes them more relatable to the audience. That wouldn't happen the same way if another actor played those characters. You more so feel for them. You're not really rooting for his characters, but you're more invested in what's going to happen to him.
Right. Yes, absolutely. He does have a way of very much humanizing his characters. I would say that if, in my personal opinion, at least when I was first getting into film, if you were to ask me what my two favorite actors were, or what the two best actors were, I would say Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, I think that they're very, very basic choices, but there's a reason they're basic. You know, they are both very good at portraying troubled, angry men, but also very good at humanizing them. So in terms of Ace Rothstein's character, what aspect of his character do you think was it that made him feel so human? Was it like his ambition, his kind of desperate need for love?
Well, when thinking about what Sam's arc was, I thought it was just very interesting how early on he was totally stressing about only betting on the sure things,
Yeah.
and he acted like he was the best ever at that.
Yeah.
And it was really cool when, the thing missing in his life was love, and he made the slimmest bet of getting together with Ginger. And I just liked how, like, it was so cool how they showed that he just obsessed over control. And, he took that bet with Ginger and he lost hard. And he just became another gambler. He couldn't beat the system.
Yeah, I think what was it Joe Pesci's character says? He's like, I don't think Ace ever actually enjoyed gambling. He was so serious and controlling about it. He never even enjoyed it. He never even had fun gambling. And so what his character didn't understand was that love is probably the one aspect of life that you cannot run it like a business. People are not numbers. You cannot run your love life like a business. But he did. And I think at the end of the day, Ginger was just kind of more of an ego boost than anything. I mean, obviously it seems like he wanted love, but what he really wanted was to say, I'm Ace Rothstein and I can do anything and I can win over anyone, and so Ginger to him was more or less of a bet. It was just another gambling ring. And that one ring, his misunderstanding of love and his over-controlling behavior of trying to control his love life was the thing that was the bet that finally sunk him. When he bet it was when he finally lost, and I think it's a very ingenious character fall.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you watched this, it's an almost 3-hour movie, but did it feel like the usual Scorsese movie of, it's very long, but there's so much going on in it that you don't even notice how long it is?
Yeah, honestly, the runtime never bothered me. I always knew it was long, but it really flies by. I think part of that is the fact that there's always music in the background. This movie in particular, Scorsese loves his music. He loves the needle drop. He loves placing music in very important scenes, and this movie is kind of just that all the way through. Everything is constantly moving. Nothing really slows down. Everything is constantly in motion, and so you definitely don't feel the runtime until later on in the movie. And even so, I'd say every minute of it is very enjoyable. So yeah, I know Scorsese is very good at making use of his long runtimes. I'd argue. I think he's very good at making sure that his movies stay engaging.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think most of his movies' runtimes are justified because, of all the time covered, all the character dynamics, all the relationships. And, I mean, that's kind of a problem I have with Killers of the Flower Moon. I mean, Wolf of Wall... were you about to say something?
No.
So, Wolf of Wall Street and Killers, they take place over the course of about the same amount of time. And, Killers was 3.5 hours for no reason, in my opinion. And it had some great stuff, but overall I thought it was dull. But with Wolf of Wall Street, it's so fun and fast-paced, it doesn't feel like 3 hours. And with something like The Irishman, another 3.5 movie, it's slow, but it takes place over the course of 50 years. And, those characters are excellently portrayed.
Yes.
And the way they show that period is, it's aesthetically interesting and compelling.
Yeah, of course. I think that it's a very interesting thing to look at in a filmmaker's career is his use of runtime. During the early stages of his career, the 80s and the 90s, his films were long, but it was, like we said, always justified. You never really felt the runtime. You felt as though he was really making the most of every minute. And then I guess The Irishman would be an example of a movie where it is slow and it is long, but there's a reason for that. He uses the runtime to simulate how these characters are feeling. They are growing old, they are growing frail, and the times that they lived in are slipping away from them, and there's really nothing you can do about that. And so you're really stuck with Frank Sheeran as he's realizing, this is my life. I'm in a retirement home without my friends are going away. My family doesn't talk to me, and that is a very daunting, isolating feeling that you can only really portray with a long runtime. And I think it's one of the most interesting looks at getting old in a movie that I've ever seen, which is something that's a very underexplored topic in film, I'd say. And then Killers of the Flower Moon was where he just kind of went too far with it, in my opinion, to the point where it was like, not only was it long, there wasn't really much happening with that runtime. I mean, like, I see what he was trying to do, but so much of the movie could have just happened quicker and still been a very drawn out, beautiful film. So I think that's when he finally dropped the ball in terms of utilizing runtime. Nonetheless, a wonderful filmography to look at.
Oh, totally.
So the last movie we looked at was Memento by Christopher Nolan, and that movie, I think that movie compared to this one, they're very different topics. Obviously, like, they're dealing with very different things, but there is a constant theme of love and time, in my opinion. Like, I think Casino, there's a finality to all of it. Was it Joe Pesci's character at the beginning? He's like, that was the last time we would get anything that expensive ever again, you know? So it's like, you can feel that their time's running out throughout the movie. You can feel that, like, it's kind of falling through. It's similar to how in Memento, you know, the Guy Pearce's character, he's always obsessed over time and how much time he has left, and he's always obsessing over memories and what he can remember. So overall, would you say that Scorsese's directing style served this movie just as good, not as good, or better than Nolan's directing style served Memento?
Oh, wow. Well, you know, I think that Nolan now is on par with, like, Scorsese's way of direction, like, in Casino. But, I mean, in Memento, it was one of his first movies, and I think that, you know, I think it was great direction. I think Casino's direction was a lot more special.
I see.
And just like those whip pans were just fantastic.
I'd say that Scorsese is a very traditional filmmaker, but he is excellent at traditional filmmaking. Stuff like whip panning, stuff like color, mise-en-scene, like, he's good at all that. Nolan is very good at unorthodox filmmaking. I think what made Memento so cool was that it's not like any movie you've ever seen. It plays out in a very specific mathematical chronological order, and I think that's only a director like Nolan could have pulled off a movie so geometric in its chronology, whereas with Casino, the filmmaking is very straightforward. It's very traditional, but it is good. It's very good at conveying this very long story, you know. And so I like these two movies because they are each a very, very perfect representation of their respective directors. They both perfectly demonstrate where the strengths of their directors are. Nolan is good at exploring time, and he's good at being geometric and creative with his chronology, whereas Scorsese is good at showing you sight and sound, like, very traditional, straightforward filmmaking, and it's probably some of the best filmmaking you'll ever see.
Totally, yeah, very well said. Scorsese being more of a traditional director, and I do see that with, like, people, I mean, including myself, like, you know, thinking of the similar elements between his films, and like, some people don't like The Wolf of Wall Street because it hits some of the same beats as Goodfellas, but I do like how a lot of his movies have similar elements, as long as it's not too copy and paste. You know, that shows his style.
I think that there is very strong consistency to be found in his filmography, but that's not a bad thing per se. I think consistency is a good thing as long as you're keeping it fresh. And so it's like, if you watch Goodfellas and The Wolf of Wall Street, like, are the story arcs similar? Yes, but they're very different movies. You will get very different things out of those two movies. And so and Casino's no different. You know, it may be consistent, maybe it's similar and reminiscent of his past, the films he made before that, but it is still very fresh and very different. It is still very new, and portrays that character arc in a very different way.
And for here, I think Casino does the best job of portraying, like, Scorsese's recurring theme of a criminal empire is thriving. You know, the characters are basking in the glory, but then it all just comes crumbling down by the end. Like, take The Irishman, for example. You know, like, Jimmy Hoffa was famous, like the Elvis and the Beatles in his day, but, later when Frank's 80 and talking to his nurse, she barely recognizes Jimmy Hoffa's name, and it was all worth nothing in the end. That happens. That happens a lot in Scorsese movies. Like by the end, characters don't have anything to show for all the crap they did. And with here, I thought it was interesting. Like Sam just goes back to sports gambling. He's right back where he started.
Right.
It's like nothing ever happened.
Very, very similar to Frank Sheeran in the way that he ends up in a retirement home. It's like, if I just stayed driving trucks my whole life, I would have ended up here anyways. Except this time I don't have my family. So I mean, Sam Roth. I think it's just a very closure. It's just a very satisfying way to end the movie. Nikki dies. Sam just ends up sports betting in a house somewhere, but not before experiencing like an absolutely tragic fall from grace. Like he didn't get off scot-free. Like he still suffered pretty bad. Not as bad as Nikki though.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know I told you before, but Nicky Santoro is based on a real life person named Tony Spilotro, who apparently was like not far off from the movie at all. Like that is really how he acted, which is just crazy to me. That it's crazy how accurate they are when it comes to portraying these characters, and it was so close to home that they had to not mention the name Chicago anywhere in the movie, because if they did that, they would be implying something about the real life mafia or like the real life mob, who would obviously not be happy about that. So every time they're referring to the city they're from, they say back home, that they never say Chicago by name. So I just thought that was a really cool aspect of the movie.
Yeah, that was cool.
So I also know that Don Rickles is in this movie. I only really know him as Mr. Potato Head from Toy Story. I'm going to be honest. I'm not familiar with his filmography as much. So, like, do you know any other Don Rickles movies, or was there anything about him as an actor that stands out?
Well, yeah. I mean, he was very big in his time as a very irreverent comedian in the 70s, and he did perform at casinos a lot. And what is interesting is he's playing a character in this movie, but then in The Irishman, an actor is playing him like at a club, like when the mob was there. So I think that Don Rickles actually performed for like gangsters.
I would not doubt it. I would not doubt that at all. But just kind of funny. Like he's a very famous comedian, but I only really know him from as Mr. Potato Head. It just speaks volumes about my childhood.
Definitely his most famous role,
for sure. Yeah, his greatest role. That right there, that puts De Niro's performance in Raging Bull to shame. All right, and Don Rickles is Mr. Potato Head.
Oh man.
But, yeah.
Well, thanks guys for listening. Next episode, we'll be talking about something Scorsese related. It's very obscure among young people, but it is Scorsese's favorite movie of all time. From 1948. The Red Shoes.
Stay tuned for that. We will be discussing that movie on our next episode. For now, thanks again for tuning in, we will be recording our next episode hopefully in the coming weeks or in the coming months. And yes, thanks again for listening. This was the After Hours Film Society podcast. I am Amin.
Oh wait, we forgot to rate the episode.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yes. Number ratings of the movie. What did you think of Casino?
Well, yeah, the first half, I'd give it an 8, and then second half, a 10, so overall, a 9. What about you?
I'd say that I have always had this movie at a 10 out of 10. After seeing many other movies and sort of maturing in terms of my movie taste, I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10, but like still one of my favorites. Classic, love it. Awesome. I think it's great. Okay. Thanks again. This has been the After Hours Film Society. I'm Amin.
And I'm Sean.